Yo, welcome back to the Winner's Paradigm podcast. Today we got a special episode. This is 125, but we've done probably about 160 episodes total. And more than that, I've been on over 150 podcasts, and this is 2 years officially of the Winner's Paradigm podcast. And it's been amazing having this podcast, sharing my healing journey. And when I talk about recalibrating mindset, people don't understand what that means to me and how much power is behind it. But we're going to keep this episode short and sweet. I'm going to give my top 3 tips of the last 2 years. But first, importantly, I want to thank you guys for tuning in. I want to thank you guys for listening to my rails and handling my bullshit for the past 2 years. I know it's funny, we go through our things, but until you have that platform and you're under scrutinization and you're really focused on what you're doing, you're not going to understand that power behind it. And even when you first start, so for me, I started in, for instance, like I was worried about what my dad would think and what my mom would think, because I'm telling some stories that are fucking hurtful, and there's pain behind it. And there's things that people did that they don't want to acknowledge or whatever it is. I talked about being sexually assaulted. My uncle was like, that shit never happened. It's different fucking things, right? And if you're not at a point to where you care about, or excuse me, if you're at a point where you still care about other people's opinions, you still care about what other people think of you, you're not going to get anywhere. And for me, it was that initially. I was getting pissed off because my mom was listening and she wasn't listening. She was having other people listen to my podcast so they can report back to her about what the fuck I was saying. And it was just like, really, if you're about that shit, you would listen to it and then check me. But it wasn't that. So for me, it was annoying initially, and I kind of censored myself, and I went long, and I went into the life story way too fucking much, and went on 100 podcast episodes, and really was talking about the who before the why and before the how. And it was funny because throughout that, I learned more about me. And I learned, the process of having a podcast, of using it, of leveraging it, of working with one of the top guys in podcasting, Zach Babcock, and being grateful for those opportunities that presented itself. And starting the podcast for me was huge because not only that it had the business impact and, allowed me to change professionally, but allowed me to become a better dad, a better husband. And that was something I lacked in the world, was getting the knowledge. And ever since I was little, as early as I can remember, I was always getting in trouble for over talking, telling people too much information, and really just trying to share and connect with people on a deeper level. And it was funny because throughout this whole process, of me working and trying to figure out, what it is, it really brought me to a point where I was like, man, I have to be able to share this news. I have to be able to do it. And getting out the Marine Corps definitely fucking shaped that. So 8 days before my daughter was born, I started the Winner's Paradigm podcast. And that's where I went all in on recalibrating mindset, because I knew there was men like me who went through a lot of adversity in their life. And they got to that point where they're like, man, I don't want to fucking live anymore. I am tired of this shit. If I died, no one would give a fuck. Life would just keep going. And for me, I realized that was the power. The power was understanding that all this fucked up shit happens in your life for a reason, and God puts you in a position of power to be able to get through all this shit, look back and say, look, motherfucker, see what I've been through. There is no quitting me. You're going to have to kill me before I fucking stop. So I tear up sometimes when I talk about it because I visualized my death, what my funeral looked like. I write my eulogy every month, and I really think about those things, when I take it into it. And one of my life pieces of work, was sharing my journey and healing so I can become a better human being, but more importantly, helping that guy who's fucking struggling. And that's why I talk about this podcast is all about men, because I'm a fucking man, and women can listen to it, absolutely. And there's a lot of pointers that can help them. But I talk to the man. Why? Because it's a different way of thinking, different way of talking. Sometimes you need that motherfucker who's going to be like, hey, man, figuratively slap you in the face. Stop being a bitch. You need to level up. You need to do the things that you're not doing, because we all know the things that we should be doing, yet we don't do them. And that is the power behind it. So we're going to keep it short and sweet. Like I said, 3 things that I've learned through this 2 years guesting with the Winner's Paradigm. The first thing is healing yourself and sharing that journey. As I talked about it, there's some things that are controversial. There's some power behind it. There's things that fucking hurt, they suck, and so forth. And if you're not focusing on healing first before you start speaking, you're going to get to a point of that. I built a 9-step program, my Pod Prosper Blueprint, and that's one of the things I share within that program is talking about setting yourself up for success, but more importantly, understanding how you're going to be able to show up differently within life, because we all don't think about these things. We don't think about getting to that point where our message is going to change, where we're doing the work, or we're doing whatever it needs to be and how we need to show up differently. And I think that's really the power behind it, is understanding who we are and what we bring to the table. And for me, as I've healed and I've shared that and I've been vulnerable and I've talked about the fucked up shit and I've talked about the anger and the defeat and the wanting to kill myself and the alignment issues and growing up and everybody was saying, you're not like us, you're different, you don't get things like us, you move faster than us. And then getting older and be like, yeah, I really don't fucking think like the normal person because people have limiting beliefs or whatever. And I came from a place where people are doing the same shit as they were doing 20, 30 years ago. And they're complaining about their fucking results and they're not doing the shit that they need in life. And two, I've already seen this from a young age. I've repeated history. I've drank and partied and realized that nothing fucking good comes to you when you're not putting that time, energy, and resources within your own body. So it's funny as I've healed, I've worked, I've went on this journey of healing. And as Wes Watson says, heal yourself and give that best version of yourself to the world. Or excuse me, heal yourself and help others do the same. It's really hit me, that's the fucking power. It's not about having a podcast. It's not about it coming on here and being funny and thinking you're fucking Joe Rogan or whoever the fuck, Andy Frisella. It's about hitting somebody on that real low point. And that's what I can do. I can talk about being sexually assaulted and how fucking bad and how angry and how violent that shit made me. And I can talk about how I internalized things and how I drank a gallon of whiskey and I wasn't the best of me. I can talk about how my nutrition wasn't on point. And that was one thing that always held me back from having the results that I wanted and why my life was not adding up. I can talk about the nasty fucking habits that we had, being addicted to sex, whatever it may be. And that is something that leads to other points in your fucking life to where you're failing in marriage. You're not being the best dad you can be. You have a little anger. You're a little bit upset because one thing in your life that you knew was a problem, you pushed to it to the side. You told that inner voice, that Holy Spirit, whatever you want to say, what's in you is God, essentially. You wanted to say, fuck off. And that is one powerful thing that people don't understand is doing those things. What's up, babe?
So I just follow Deers right now, and my cute EOS and my soft